What if the edge of our world wasn't the sky above us, but a silent ocean of ice so far away that no one has ever seen it? We are taught to think of the solar system as vast and unending, a grand stage where the sun commands planets, moons, and comets in their eternal dance. But every kingdom has borders, and even the sun's rule fades. Beyond Neptune, beyond the faint ring of the Kuiper Belt, there may lie a shell, the Oort Cloud, a sphere of frozen fragments, invisible and untouched, orbiting at the edge of darkness. It is said to cradle billions of icy bodies, relics flung outward during the solar system's violent birth. We know it exists not because we have seen it, but because its messengers, comets, blaze across our skies, carrying whispers of a home we cannot reach. But what if the Oort Cloud is more than a graveyard of frozen time? What if it is not simply the edge of the solar system, but the edge of the world itself? Imagine drifting outward until the sun becomes a faint star, indistinguishable from the rest. Imagine standing in that silence, at the limit of its warmth, where gravity itself begins to surrender to the pull of other stars. Here, belonging unravels. Here, identity dissolves. And here, the most unsettling question rises: if this is the edge, then what lies beyond? Perhaps infinity, perhaps nothing, or perhaps something stranger than both. The Oort Cloud does not just force us to wonder about the cosmos, it forces us to wonder about ourselves, because the greatest mystery may not be what lies outside, but what it means to live inside. And to understand what it means to live inside, we must first understand the walls themselves, for every world is defined not only by what lies within it, but by the boundaries that contain it. On Earth, those boundaries are oceans and atmospheres. In the solar system, the boundary is not stone or air, but distance, the invisible frontier where the sun's influence fades. To grasp the Oort Cloud, we must first measure just how far the sun's reach extends. The Oort Cloud is not just a poetic idea, it is the largest structure of our solar system, larger than everything else combined. From the blazing surface of the sun to the orbit of Neptune is about 4.5 billion kilometers. From there to Pluto, on its distant elliptical path, is about 6 billion kilometers. Even the Kuiper Belt, the icy ring beyond Neptune, home to Pluto, Eris, Haumea, and Makemake, extends only to about 50 astronomical units. An astronomical unit, or AU, is the distance from Earth to the Sun, about 150 million kilometers. But the Oort Cloud, it begins, scientists believe, at around 2000 AU, that is 40 times farther than Pluto, and it may stretch as far as 100,000 AU, nearly 1.5 light years. To put it differently, the Oort Cloud may be closer to the nearest stars than it is to the sun itself. This is not just distance, this is exile. This is the frontier where the sun's gravity, stretched to its last breath, finally gives way to the pull of the galaxy. Here, the sun no longer rules as a monarch, but whispers as one voice among many. And yet this invisible sphere may contain trillions of objects, icy remnants of the solar system's birth, comets frozen in silence, perhaps with cores as small as a mountain, perhaps as large as a planet. If Earth is a city, the Oort Cloud is the uncharted wilderness beyond its walls, a wilderness so vast and so remote that no probe has reached it, no telescope has captured it, and no human will ever see it directly with their own eyes. Still, we know it exists, or at least we are almost certain. Why? Because of the comets. When a comet streaks across the sky, it is not just a spectacle, it is a messenger. Most comets have elongated orbits returning every few years or decades, members of the Kuiper Belt. But some comets are different. They arrive suddenly, from random directions, with orbits so vast they take millions of years to complete. Comet Hale-Bopp, for example, one of the brightest ever seen, last visited us more than 4,000 years ago. Others will never return at all. These long-period comets come not from the Kuiper Belt, but from something farther, something something enclosing us from all sides. They come from the Oort Cloud. Jan Oort, the Dutch astronomer who first proposed this idea in 1950, noticed that comets with long orbits shared certain clues. They entered the solar system from all directions equally, not just along a disk like the planets. That meant they had to come from a spherical distribution, and their paths were too fragile to have survived repeated trips near the sun. They had to be newcomers, icy bodies stored far away, untouched since the birth of the solar system, only disturbed when a passing star or galactic tide nudged them inward. And so Oort imagined a great cloud surrounding everything, sending its messengers inward when stirred. It was a theory, But over the decades, every comet that fell from the sky confirmed it. The Oort Cloud is not visible, but its fingerprints are everywhere. What does it mean then to live inside such a sphere? It means that our world is not open-ended but enclosed, not infinite but bounded. Beyond Neptune lies not endless nothing but a shell, invisible yet immense, where trillions of frozen bodies drift in orbits older than civilization itself. We live inside a bubble of ice, so far beyond our reach that it might as well be eternity, and yet even eternity has a history. The objects of the Oort Cloud are not random. They were born here in the chaos of the early solar system. When the planets were young, they moved like predators through a storm of smaller bodies. Jupiter especially hurled countless icy planetesimals outward. Some escaped entirely, lost to interstellar space. Others lingered, trapped at the edge of the sun's grasp. Over billions of years, they settled into a vast, diffuse cloud. What we call the Oort Cloud is not an accident. It is the memory of violence. It is the fossil record of creation. And because it formed in the same epoch as the planets, it may hold secrets we cannot find anywhere else. Pristine material from the dawn of time, water and organics unaltered by sunlight or heat. In those frozen cores may be the very molecules that seeded life on Earth, delivered later by comets that struck our oceans. To study the Oort Cloud is not only to study the edge, it is to study our beginning. But to reach it is impossible, at least for now. Voyager 1, humanity's farthest probe, launched in 1977, is only about 160 AU from the Sun. It will not reach the inner edge of the Oort Cloud for another 300 years. To cross it entirely could take tens of thousands. If Earth's history were compressed into a single day, Voyager would have traveled less than a heartbeat into that final frontier. And yet the Oort Cloud is not just distance, it is identity. Because standing here, even imagining standing here, see, hang is what it means to belong. Behind you lies the solar system, a fragile disk of dust and light spinning obediently around the sun. Ahead lies the void, the galaxy, the pull of other stars. At this edge, the sun's authority fades. Its light cannot reach, its gravity falters. What then defines us? Are we children of the sun, or are we already adrift, citizens of the galaxy? This is the paradox of the Oort Cloud. It is at once the outermost boundary of our world and the beginning of another. It is where the inside and the outside blur, where identity dissolves into uncertainty. And so the greatest mystery is not whether the Oort Cloud exists. We are confident it does. The mystery is what it means to live inside it, to know that every breath we take, every life we live, every star we admire in the night sky, all of it is enclosed, all of it belongs to a sphere we cannot see, all of it is temporary. Because one day the Oort Cloud itself will not remain still. Stars pass, galaxies shift, boundaries are rewritten. Our world, enclosed as it is not permanent. Perhaps infinity, perhaps nothing, or perhaps something stranger than both. But for now, we live inside a bubble of ice and silence, wrapped in the fading light of a single star. But even inside this bubble of ice and silence, the question lingers, how strong is the voice of the sun, really? For everything we have ever known, every orbit, every heartbeat of cosmic order is written in its pull. The sun is the anchor, the master of planets and moons, the sculptor of orbits. But out here at the Oort Cloud, that power is not eternal, it is fading. Gravity, unlike light, has no horizon, it never ends. But it does weaken, stretching thinner and thinner across the emptiness. At the distance of the Oort Cloud, tens of thousands of astronomical units, the sun's pull is so faint that it no longer feels absolute. A passing star, drifting a few light years away, can tug just as strongly. Even the tidal forces of the Milky Way itself, the slow, invisible currents of the galaxy's mass, begin to compete. Imagine what that means. The sun, which binds Earth so tightly that we cannot break free without fire and rockets, is, at its edge, no stronger than the whisper of strangers. The Oort Cloud is not a fortress, but a negotiation, a fragile balance between belonging and loss. The comets that live here are not loyal. They are borrowed, shared, contested by the galaxy itself. And this is where the idea of inside begins to unravel. Because if the sun cannot hold absolute sway, if its voice is no louder than the chorus of other stars, then what does it mean to say we live inside its world? Are we not already halfway gone? This is not just speculation. We have seen the evidence. Every so often, a star wanders too close. Astronomers estimate that in the lifetime of the solar system, thousands of stars have passed near enough to disturb the Oort Cloud. Some came within a single light year, close enough to scatter comets like sparks from a fire. One such encounter will happen again in the future. A star named Gliese 710, a modest orange dwarf, is on course to pass within a single light year of the Sun in about 1.3 million years. When it does, its gravity may shake the Oort Cloud, sending a rain of comets inward, some destined to blaze across our skies, others perhaps to strike the Earth. Think about that. The fate of our world, the rhythm of our comets, even the survival of life itself, is not decided by the Sun alone. It is decided by the stars around us, by the shifting currents of the galaxy, by encounters written in the vast calendar of cosmic time. And so, the Oort Cloud is not merely a wall, it is a shoreline, a place where the tides of other stars lap against our own. To live inside is to be bound, but only barely, tethered by threads so thin they may break at any moment. This fragility is unsettling, but it is also profound, because it means that the solar system is not isolated. It is porous, it breathes, it exchanges with the galaxy. Comets leave, comets return, some perhaps stolen from other stars, some perhaps gifted to us. The Oort Cloud is not just ours, it is part of the Milky Way's shared economy, a reservoir of ice and stone, traded among suns like ancient goods along forgotten trade routes. And this opens a more daring possibility. What if life itself is part of that trade? For comets are not merely ice, they are chemistry. Inside them we have found water, carbon, amino acids, the building blocks of biology. It is entirely possible that Earth's oceans were seeded by comets long ago, their frozen cargo melting upon impact, spilling water into the young planet's basins. It is possible, too, that the first sparks of organic chemistry, the molecules that would one day assemble into life, came riding in on comet dust. If that is true, then the Oort Cloud is not just the edge of the solar system, it is the cradle of our own existence. But if comets can bring life here, can they not also carry it away? A comet struck Earth, ejecting fragments of rock into space. Some fragments, scientists believe, may have carried microbes sealed inside, hardy enough to survive. If such debris escaped into the Oort Cloud, then one day, nudged by a passing star, it could leave the solar system entirely, drifting across interstellar space, perhaps to land upon another world. This is the theory of panspermia, that life is not confined to planets, but scattered like seeds across the galaxy, carried by comets and asteroids. If so, then the Oort Cloud is not just a shell, it is a bridge, the place where life itself crosses from one world to another. To live inside, then, is not only to be contained, it is to be connected. And yet here is the paradox. The Oort Cloud remains invisible. No telescope has yet imaged its icy bodies. No probe has ventured far enough to confirm them. Everything we know comes from comets, from what falls inward, never from what remains out there. We are like cave dwellers who know the outside world only by the stones that tumble in. Still, the pattern is too strong to deny. The mathematics of orbits, the distribution of comets, the history of impacts, they all point to the same truth. The Oort Cloud exists. It is real, it is vast beyond comprehension, and we live inside it, though we may never touch it. And perhaps that is why it feels so haunting. Because to live inside a wall you cannot see is to live in mystery. To feel enclosed, yet never certain where the edges are. To sense that you belong, but not to know how far that belonging extends. So we ask again, what does it mean to live inside? It means fragility. The sun's voice is fading, other stars compete, the galaxy itself tugs at our borders. One close encounter and the balance may collapse. It means connection. The comets that fall are not only icy rocks, they are time travelers bringing chemistry from the dawn of creation, perhaps carrying the very seeds of life itself. And it means humility, because standing at this edge, imagining this fragile shell, we realize that our world is not sovereign, it is not infinite, it is one bubble among billions, drifting in the galaxy's tide. And perhaps this is the truest lesson of the Oort Cloud, that the edge of the world is not a boundary of isolation, but a threshold of belonging. To live inside is to live at the mercy of the galaxy, and to wonder whether the comets that fall to Earth are not just remnants of the past, but gifts from neighbors we will never see. So when we look up at the night sky, when we watch a comet blaze across it, we are not just looking at ice. We are looking at our connection to the edge, at the threads that bind us not only to the sun, but to the stars themselves. And that is why the Oort Cloud is more than a wall. It is a mirror. It reflects back the truth that the farther we go, the less certain home becomes. And the more we learn about the cosmos, the more we realize that we may not live in isolation at all, but in a web, fragile, invisible, stretching between suns. The Oort Cloud is where the sun's voice fades, but it is also where the galaxy begins to speak. The Oort Cloud is where the sun's voice fades, but it is also where the galaxy begins to speak. And to hear that voice clearly, we must drift farther still, past the last icy fragments, past the final whispers of solar gravity, into the true expanse beyond. Here, for the first time, we step outside. What does outside even mean? For most of us, space already feels like outside. Step beyond Earth's atmosphere, and you are in space. Leave the orbit of the moon, and you are in deep space. But those are illusions of scale. In truth, Earth's orbit, the moon's orbit, even the path of Neptune, all of it is still firmly inside the sun's domain. To go outside means to go where the sun's influence no longer defines your reality. It means to leave the heliosphere. The heliosphere is the bubble carved by the solar wind, a stream of charged particles that rush outward from the sun at nearly 1,000,000 miles per hour. For billions of kilometers, this wind pushes against the thin gases of interstellar space, creating a protective cocoon around the planets. It is our shield, our atmosphere writ large, holding back the harsher radiation of the galaxy. Inside it, cosmic rays are deflected, slowed, softened. Outside it, the universe is raw and unfiltered. Voyager 1 crossed that threshold in 2012. After 35 years of travel, it moved beyond the heliopause, the place where the solar wind yields to the pressure of the interstellar medium. For the first time, a human-made object entered interstellar space. But even Voyager is still far from the Oort Cloud, far from the true edge of the sun's gravity. It has stepped outside the bubble of wind, yes, but not yet outside the bubble of belonging. And this distinction matters, because the Oort Cloud is not shaped by the solar wind, but by solar gravity itself. To leave it is to leave the last thread of the sun's hold. Beyond it lies not just interstellar space, but the galactic sea, a realm where no single star dominates, where every object floats in the shared tide of the Milky Way. What is this galactic sea? It is not empty. Between the stars drifts the interstellar medium, a thin soup of gas and dust, denser in some regions, thinner in others. In every cubic centimeter, there may be just a handful of atoms, hydrogen, helium, trace elements forged in the deaths of ancient stars. It is from this medium that new stars are born, collapsing under gravity into nurseries of fire. And it is into this medium that stars eventually return their ashes through winds, eruptions, supernovae. To step beyond the Oort Cloud is to step into this endless cycle, to leave the sovereignty of the sun and join the circulation of the galaxy itself. But what does it mean for us? First, it means vulnerability. Inside the heliosphere, we are shielded. Outside it, radiation intensifies. Cosmic rays from distant supernovae, black holes and pulsars pour unfiltered into the void. For any future explorers, this will not be a gentle crossing. It will be dangerous. To step beyond is to leave shelter. Second, it means insignificance. Within the solar system, the sun is everything. Beyond it, the sun is nothing. At 1 light-year away, still within the Oort Cloud, the sun's light is so dim that it barely outshines the background. At 4 light-years, where the nearest star, Proxima Centauri, resides, the sun is simply one star among many. From there, Earth does not shine at all. It disappears. Everything we are is erased into anonymity. And yet it also means belonging, because outside we are not alone. The galaxy is a community of stars, each with its own Oort Cloud, its own comets, its own planets. Our bubble touches theirs. Boundaries overlap. In the galactic sea, there are no absolute walls, only currents. Material drifts between, stars, comets wander, perhaps even microbes carried on debris travel from one system to another. To cross outside is to join that circulation, to become part of something larger, This raises the most haunting question of all. If every star has its own Oort cloud, then is the galaxy itself one vast mosaic of overlapping shells? Are we not all already living inside a greater structure? Perhaps the edge of the solar system is not the end of belonging, but the beginning of a larger identity. Galactic citizens, bound not to a single sun, but to the Milky Way as a whole. But if that is true, then what defines an edge at all? Edges, after all, are human inventions. On Earth they are oceans, mountains, horizons. In space they are shells of gravity, bubbles of wind, fading lines of influence. But every edge is relative. Every edge is temporary. Stars move, galaxies collide. What is inside today may be outside tomorrow. The Oort cloud itself is not permanent. Over millions of years, passing stars will strip it away, scattering its comets into the galactic tide. One day our solar system may be naked, its edge erased. And that thought unsettles everything, because if the edge can disappear, then so can the identity it defines. To live inside is to live within a story, but stories can end, boundaries can dissolve. What then remains of belonging? Here lies the paradox of crossing into the galactic sea. On one hand, it erases us. The sun is just another star. Earth is nothing. We are swallowed in infinity. On the other hand, it includes us. We are not isolated. We are woven into the galaxy's fabric, part of its circulation, part of its story. So which is it? Are we erased or included? Are we insignificant or essential? The truth may be both, for the galaxy does not care about our identity, but it carries us nonetheless. We are threads in its endless weaving, and perhaps this is why the Oort cloud haunts us so deeply, because it is not simply an edge of distance, it is an edge of meaning. To stand within it is to hear two voices at once, the fading why, spur of the sun, and the rising chorus of the galaxy. One says you belong here, the other says you belong everywhere. To cross outside, then, is not simply to move farther, it is to confront a choice of identity. Are we children of a star or children of a galaxy? Do we live inside one world or inside many? Voyager 1 drifts toward this question even now. Silent, cold, carrying a golden record of human songs and greetings, it has already crossed the heliopause. One day it will cross the Oort cloud, and then perhaps it will no longer belong to us at all. It will be a citizen of the galaxy, carrying our voice into the sea of stars. And maybe that is what it means for us too, that one day we will leave, that our destiny is not to remain sheltered inside, but to step into the dark, to risk insignificance for the chance of greater belonging. The Oort cloud will not hold us forever. No wall does. Every wall is a threshold, and every threshold is an invitation. So the question returns, sharper now. If we cross into the galactic sea, what will we find? Infinity, nothing, or something stranger than both? However, to cross into the galactic sea is not simply to leave home. It is to enter a place where borders blur, where worlds overlap, where stars themselves compete for what lies between them. For here, at the very edge of the sun's domain, we begin to see the truth. Our solar system is not alone. It is part of a crowd, pressed shoulder to shoulder with other suns, their invisible shells brushing against ours. Imagine this, every star may have its own Oort cloud, its own frozen sphere of comets cast outward at birth. If so, then the galaxy is not a void, but a mosaic. Trillions of icy bodies drifting in overlapping shells, like soap bubbles pressed together in a foaming sea. Where they touch, ownership becomes uncertain. A comet disturbed in one star's cloud may find itself flung into another's. Material is traded, exchanged, stolen. The boundaries of worlds are not fixed but fluid. This is not mere speculation. Astronomers have already found evidence that some of our comets may not be ours at all. Their orbits are strange, their chemistry unfamiliar. They may have been captured long ago, visitors from distant suns now living quietly in our Oort cloud. If that is true, then the very definition of inside collapses. Our edge is not just our own, it is shared. And the process continues still. Stars move. The sun itself orbits the center of the Milky Way every 230 million years, drifting through different neighborhoods, passing close to other systems. With each encounter, the Oort cloud is stirred. Comets are stolen, others gained. The galactic tide itself, the slow gravitational pull of the Milky Way's mass, tugs at the edges, shaping the distribution of comets, thinning them here, thickening them there. This is the reality of the galactic sea. It is not empty, but dynamic. It is alive with tides and currents, encounters and exchanges. It is a place where worlds spurt, collide, not in fiery impacts, but in the quiet sharing of material, in the invisible negotiation of gravity. Consider what this means for identity. If our Oort cloud contains comets born of other stars, then we are already mixed. We are not purely of the sun. We carry fragments of other histories, other beginnings. The water in Earth's oceans, the organics in our soil, may include molecules born in distant systems delivered here by captured comets. To live inside, then, is not to be isolated. It is to be entangled in a web that spans the galaxy. And yet, this entanglement is fragile. When stars pass close, the consequences can be violent. A near miss can scatter thousands of comets, sending a hail inward. Earth has felt the scars of such encounters. Craters across our planet, on the Moon, on Mars, testify to epochs when the skies rained fire. Some of these bombardments may have been triggered by passing stars stirring the Oort cloud. Our world is shaped not only by the sun, but by the galaxy's traffic. The future holds more of the same. We know of stars on paths that will one day brush close. Gliese 710, in just over 1 million years, will pass within a single light year, disturbing our edges. The result may be a storm of comets, some beautiful, others catastrophic. To cross into the galactic sea is to accept that we are not protected. Our edge is porous. Our fate is tied to encounters we cannot control. But perhaps this is also an opportunity. If comets can be exchanged, so too can chemistry, even life. The theory of panspermia suggests that microbes may ride inside rocks blasted from planets by impacts, shielded from radiation, surviving in dormancy for millions of years. If such fragments are caught in the trade of Oort clouds, then life itself may drift between stars. If that is true, then no world is truly isolated. Life may not be unique, but shared. And the Oort cloud, these fragile overlapping shells, may be the conduits. So when we ask, what lies beyond? The answer may not be infinity or nothing. It may be connection. It may be that the galaxy itself is a living network, its stars exchanging material, its worlds sharing chemistry, its edges bleeding into one another. Perhaps the cosmos is less like a desert, more like an ocean. Vast, yes, but with hidden currents that carry seeds from one shore to another. Still, the mystery deepens. Because if every star has its own Oort cloud, then how do these shells interact on the grandest scales? Do they form a continuous fabric, overlapping until the galaxy is one unbroken web of ice and stone? Or do they remain distinct, bubbles colliding and breaking, reshaping as stars drift? Astronomers cannot yet answer. Our telescopes cannot see these clouds directly. We know them only by their messengers, by the comets that fall inward, by the orbits that betray their origins. We are like sailors charting an unseen sea by the driftwood that washes ashore. But the pattern is undeniable. The edges of worlds are not solitary. They are communal. They collide. And this leads to a final haunting thought. If comets are exchanged, if life is exchanged, then so too are destinies. The extinction of dinosaurs, perhaps triggered by a comet, may have been written not by the sun, not by Earth, but by a passing star disturbing the Oort cloud. Our history may be the consequence of a collision between worlds we never knew existed. To live inside, then, is to live in a constant negotiation with the galaxy. We are not enclosed in solitude. We are pressed against neighbors, trading fragments, sharing chemistry, risking collisions. The Oort cloud is not just the edge of the solar system. It is the place where worlds collide, quietly, invisibly, across distances too vast to imagine. And so the question sharpens again. If the edges of worlds overlap, then are we ever truly inside, or have we always belonged to the galaxy itself? If we have always belonged to the galaxy itself, then another question rises, sharper than all the rest. Does belonging ever end? If stars exchange comets, if galaxies exchange matter, if no boundary is absolute, then is there any true edge at all? Or is the universe infinite, stretching forever in every direction, a vastness without end? Infinity is one of humanity's oldest obsessions. Look up at the night sky, and it feels endless. The stars have no visible wall, no curtain where they stop. Our instinct whispers, it must go on forever. And yet, science urges caution, because infinity is not just size, it is meaning. To ask whether the universe is infinite is to ask whether there is a final horizon to everything, a last shell beyond which nothing exists. For centuries, philosophers and astronomers wrestled with this. Aristotle imagined a universe eternal and unbounded. Later, religious cosmologies often described a finite cosmos enclosed by heavens. Then came Copernicus, Galileo, Newton, and the scale expanded beyond imagining. The sun was not the center. The Milky Way was not the whole. Each discovery pushed the horizon farther. Each discovery made infinity seem more likely But modern cosmology complicates the picture. We now know the universe began 13.8 billion years ago in the Big Bang, a single hot, dense point that expanded outward. From that beginning, space itself has stretched, carrying galaxies with it. We live in that expansion still, and because light has a finite speed, we can only see as far as it has had time to travel. Beyond about 46 billion light years in any direction, there is no more view. Not because the universe ends, but because light from farther away has not yet reached us. This is the observable universe, a bubble defined not by walls, but by time. Beyond it may lie more universe, perhaps infinite, perhaps finite, but larger than we can see. We do not know, we may never know. And yet the Oort Cloud offers a haunting parallel. It too is invisible. It too defines a boundary not by sight, but by influence. Inside it, we belong to the sun. Beyond it, we belong to the galaxy. And just as comets crossing inward hint at the Oort Cloud's existence, so too do cosmic signals hint at what lies beyond our observable universe. Faint whispers in the cosmic microwave background, the distribution of galaxies, the curvature of space. So is the universe infinite? There are clues. Measurements of cosmic geometry suggest that on the largest scales, space is flat. A flat universe, by Einstein's equations, is likely infinite. If true, then galaxies go on forever, stars go on forever, worlds go on forever. The Oort Cloud is not the edge of the world, but simply the smallest echo of a larger pattern. Shells within shells, edges within edges, all nested inside infinity. But infinity carries paradox. If the universe is infinite, then every possible arrangement of matter must exist somewhere. Not just planets like Earth, but exact copies of Earth. Not just copies of you, but infinite versions of you, living every possible life. Infinity erases uniqueness. It replaces wonder with inevitability, and that is unsettling. On the other hand, what if the universe is finite? What if beyond the observable horizon there truly is an edge? Perhaps space curves back on itself, like the surface of a sphere, so that traveling far enough brings you back where you began. Or perhaps there is a wall, a final boundary where space itself ceases. If that is true, then our universe is not everything. It is a bubble, perhaps one among many. This is the multiverse hypothesis, that beyond our cosmos lie others, each with their own laws, their own constants, their own beginnings. Some may be dead, sterile voids. Others may be vibrant, filled with galaxies stranger than our imagination. In such a picture, the Oort Cloud is not just a metaphor, it is a microcosm. Just as comets mark the edge of the solar system, so too do faint cosmic signals mark the edge of our universe, hinting at other realities beyond. And so the question of infinity becomes personal, because if infinity exists, then so do we, over and over, endlessly repeated. If finitude exists, then we live inside a cosmic Oort Cloud, bounded and fragile, defined by an edge we cannot cross. Either way, the meaning of inside changes. Inside infinity, nothing is unique. Inside finitude, everything is precious. Which truth would we prefer? Science cannot yet decide. The data lean toward flatness, toward infinity, but the evidence is not absolute. The universe hides its edge as well. Just as the Oort Cloud remains invisible, the cosmic boundary, if it exists, lies beyond our grasp. We live enclosed by mysteries, surrounded by walls we cannot touch, forced to wonder whether they are real at all. Perhaps that is the lesson, that every edge is not an answer, but a mirror. The Oort Cloud reflects our solar system back at us, forcing us to see its fragility. The observable universe reflects our existence back at us, forcing us to confront infinity or finitude. And in both cases, the question is the same: what does it mean to live inside? So as we gaze outward, as we dream of crossing into the galactic sea, as we imagine what lies beyond the last comet or the last galaxy, we are asking not about the universe but about ourselves. Do we belong to infinity or to a fragile bubble? Are we eternal or are we rare? Is our story written across endless copies, or is it unique, unrepeatable, ours alone? The question remains, and in its shadow the journey continues. Infinity, nothing, or something stranger than both, the question remains, and in its shadow the journey continues. For if the Oort Cloud is a wall, then every wall invites us to ask, what lies beyond? We have described it as a shell, a sphere of icy bodies scattered across light years, the final reach of the sun's gravity. But to imagine it only as a limit is to miss its deeper meaning. The Oort Cloud is not just an edge, it is a curtain, and every curtain can be pulled aside. So let us step through. Behind us, the solar system dwindles. The sun has long since become a bright star, no different from the billions that surround it. The planets are invisible. Even the Oort Cloud itself, despite its immensity, cannot be seen. It is too diffuse, its icy bodies too far apart. If you floated here, you would not see a wall of comets. You would see nothing at all. Darkness, endless darkness. But invisibility does not mean absence. Every fragment of ice drifting past is a relic, a time capsule, a messenger. They remind us that even in silence, history lingers. And once we pass beyond the last of them, once the curtain falls behind us, we are no longer inside. We are outside. Outside the sun's rule, outside the comfort of belonging, outside the world we once called ours. And here the galaxy asserts itself fully. No longer is its voice faint, competing with the sun's whisper. Now it is the only voice. Gravity belongs to the Milky Way. Radiation belongs to the cosmos. The tides that shape your path are not the pull of one star, but the collective pull of hundreds of billions. You are no longer a child of the sun. You are a citizen of the galaxy. What does such a place feel like? It is colder than anything we can imagine. Temperatures only a fraction above absolute zero. It is emptier than any desert, a vacuum so thin that you could travel 1,000,000 kilometers without touching a single atom, and yet it is not nothing. Faint gases drift, cosmic rays streak, magnetic fields thread through the dark, linking stars like invisible wires. This is the interstellar medium, the ocean between suns. It is not uniform. In some places it is sparse, almost a void. In others it thickens into clouds, molecular nurseries where new stars will be born. The sun itself drifts through this medium, carrying its planets and comets like a ship through a sea. To step beyond the Oort Cloud is to leave the ship and fall into the water, to feel the current of the galaxy directly. And here another realization dawns. The Oort Cloud was never a final edge. It was a veil, thin and porous. Comets cross it freely, stars tug at it. Material passes in and out. The solar system has never been sealed. It has always been part of something larger. We only feel the curtain when we cross it, when we finally let go of the sun. This is where identity shifts again. Inside the solar system, we belong to one star. Outside, we belong to many. The constellations we once admired, Orion, Cassiopeia, the Pleiades, are no longer patterns on a dome. They are neighbors, real and near, their positions shifting with every step. You're not looking at the sky anymore, you are inside it. But even here, questions multiply. If we are now citizens of the galaxy, then what is the galaxy itself inside of? If we have crossed one curtain, how many more are there? Could there be a galactic Oort Cloud, a boundary enclosing not just stars but the Milky Way as a whole? Could there be larger shells, larger veils, until at last we face the ultimate horizon of the universe itself? Every curtain we cross reminds us that edges are illusions. The Oort Cloud was not the end. The galaxy is not the end. Even infinity, if it exists, may be only another curtain, hiding something stranger still. And perhaps that is the deepest truth of all, that to step beyond the curtain of ice is not to find finality, but to discover that there is no finality. There is only journey, only transition, only the endless unfolding of edges into new horizons. So we drift forward, the sun behind us, the galaxy around us, the universe ahead. And in the silence, one question remains. Are we still inside something, even here, or have we at last begun to live outside? The answer begins to reveal itself when we remember that the sun is not unique. Every star is born in violence. Every star is surrounded by debris. Every star casts fragments into exile. If the Oort Cloud is our shell, then surely other stars have their shells too. And so the galaxy is not an empty sea, but a lattice of overlapping spheres, invisible, immense, fragile. Billions of Oort clouds brushing against one another like bubbles in foam, trading fragments, scattering comets, weaving connections across light years. Imagine it. The sun drifts through the Milky Way on its 230 million year orbit around the galactic center. Along the way, it passes other stars, brushes past their boundaries, disturbs their comets, even as they disturb ours. Each encounter is subtle, measured in fractions of light years, yet its consequences ripple for millions of years. A star passes close, and suddenly 1,000 comets are nudged inward, some to blaze across Earth's skies, some to collide with worlds and alter their histories forever. This has happened countless times before. It will happen countless times again. Gliese 710, the orange dwarf now inbound, will in 1,000,000 years pass within a single light year of the sun, stirring our Oort Cloud like a spoon in water. Comets will fall. Some will be beautiful, others may be catastrophic. But here is the wonder. In such encounters, exchange takes place. Some of our comets may be stolen, captured by another star. Some of theirs may join us, orbiting silently in our cloud. Already, astronomers suspect that certain comets in our sky are not native. Their chemistry does not match what we expect. Their orbits seem too strange. They may be echoes from other suns, fragments of alien histories that now drift under the sun's faint pull. If that is true, then even Earth may carry foreign gifts. The water in our oceans, the carbon in our soil, may include molecules forged under another sun, carried across light years in the belly of a comet, delivered long before life began. We are not only children of the sun, we are heirs of the galaxy. This realization unsettles identity. For what does it mean to say we belong to the solar system if pieces of us are foreign? If fragments of other worlds drift among our comets, then our inside is already mixed with outside. The Oort Cloud is not a wall, but a marketplace, an intersection, a place where worlds collide and share. And if chemistry can be shared, can life? This is the daring thought behind panspermia. Microbes, hidden in rocks blasted from planets by impacts, might survive the journey. Frozen, shielded from radiation, they could remain dormant for millions of years until delivered to a new world. If comets cross from one star's Oort Cloud into another's, then life itself may cross too. Perhaps Earth was seeded this way. Perhaps we, in turn, will seed others. If so, then life is not local. It is galactic. It is not the story of a single world, but the story of exchange, carried on the backs of frozen messengers. The Oort Cloud, then, is not merely the edge of the world. It is the interface of worlds, the place where suns whisper to each other, trading fragments in silence. And here the question deepens. If every star has its echoes, if every comet is a story, then what stories are hidden in the comets we have yet to see? What secrets of alien chemistry, alien beginnings, alien life might be waiting in the ice we cannot reach? The truth is, we do not know. The Oort Cloud has never been touched, never been directly observed. It is a ghost inferred by the comets that fall inward. Yet the pattern is too consistent to deny. We live in a galaxy of overlapping shells, invisible but real, and every comet that streaks across our sky is an echo of that truth. So perhaps we are not outside at all. Perhaps we are still inside, not inside the sun's world, but inside the galaxy's web, a network of edges colliding, a fabric woven from countless spheres. To step beyond the Oort Cloud is not to escape, but to discover that the walls we thought were ours alone are shared, and that every star leaves its fingerprints on every other. And so the question sharpens once more. If our world is already mixed with echoes from other suns, then how much of us is truly ours? And how much of us belongs to the galaxy? If comets are echoes from other suns, then the Oort Cloud is their chorus. It surrounds us, defines us, shapes our destiny, and yet we have never seen it. We believe in it, we model it, we trace its fingerprints in the sky, but it remains invisible. In this way, the Oort Cloud is more than science. It is a horizon of imagination. Consider this, no telescope has ever imaged an Oort Cloud object. They are too small, too dark, too distant. Even our most powerful observatories, peering billions of light years into the depths of the cosmos, cannot glimpse the icy bodies only a fraction of a light year away. The irony is sharp. We can map galaxies colliding in the far universe, yet we cannot see the frozen fragments on our own doorstep. And yet we know they must be there. The evidence is overwhelming. Long-period comets falling from every direction, arriving with orbits so vast they cannot be explained by the Kuiper Belt alone. Their chemistry, their timing, their sheer abundance all point to a vast reservoir. Like detectives reconstructing a crime from scattered clues, astronomers have pieced together the existence of the Oort Cloud. It is not seen, but it is certain. This duality is haunting. For what do we call something that is real but invisible, certain but unseen? Myth, legend. And in this sense, the Oort Cloud becomes a modern myth, a structure that exists half in mathematics, half in imagination. But myths have power. They shape how we think, how we belong, how we wonder. The Oort Cloud forces us to ask, what does it mean to live inside a wall you cannot see? To be enclosed by a boundary that is everywhere and nowhere at once? Perhaps it means humility. We are not sovereign. Our world has edges. We are children inside a bubble, even if we cannot see its glass. Perhaps it means curiosity. For every comet that falls inward is a glimpse behind the curtain, a hint of what lies beyond. Each blazing tail across the sky is both proof and temptation. Proof that the Oort Cloud is real, and temptation to imagine what else it hides. And perhaps it means paradox, because the Oort Cloud is both real and imagined, both fact and legend. It exists in the mathematics of orbits, but it also exists in the human mind, in our endless drive to seek horizons we cannot touch. This is why it fascinates us, because the Oort Cloud is not just the edge of the solar system, it is the edge of certainty itself. Beyond it we cannot see, beyond it we cannot know. And yet we imagine infinity, we imagine nothing, we imagine something stranger than both. So perhaps the Oort Cloud is not just a scientific frontier, it is a psychological one. It reveals not only the structure of our solar system, but the structure of our minds, our need for edges, our hunger for horizons, our refusal to accept what we cannot see without at least imagining it. And in this sense, every comet is more than ice. It is a message from our own imagination, a reminder that we live in a universe defined not just by what we can measure, but by what we dare to believe. The Oort Cloud is unseen, it may always remain unseen, and yet it is real. It shapes our skies, our histories, our myths. It is the horizon of imagination, and in its silence it forces us to confront a truth, that the boundaries of the world are not only written in space, but in the human mind. If the boundaries of the world are written in the human mind, then the question we cannot silence is this: what lives beyond them? For if the Oort Cloud is the edge of our solar system, then surely beyond that edge lies not only matter, not only stars, but perhaps life itself. Life, after all, is not shy. On Earth it appears wherever it can, in boiling springs, in frozen tundra, in the deepest oceans where sunlight never reaches. Microbes thrive in acid, in salt, even in the vacuum of space for brief spans. If life is this resilient here, why would it stop at the curtain of ice? Why would it not exist beyond, scattered through the galaxy, waiting to be discovered? Scientists have long debated this. On one hand, the conditions for life seem rare. Earth required just the right distance from the sun, just the right atmosphere, just the right chemistry. On the other hand, the universe is vast beyond comprehension. There are more stars in the Milky Way than grains of sand on Earth's beaches, and most of those stars host planets. To believe that only one of them carries life is to believe that a lottery won once can never be won again. And so we search. The search for extraterrestrial life is, in many ways, the search for what lies beyond our Oort Cloud. Mamidsum. Not in distance, but in identity. If life exists elsewhere, then inside and outside lose their meaning. We are no longer unique, we are no longer alone. Already we have hints. Exoplanets have been found by the thousands orbiting distant stars. Many lie in the so-called habitable zone, where temperatures might allow liquid water. Some are Earth-sized, rocky, perhaps with atmospheres. We cannot yet see their surfaces, cannot yet know if oceans glimmer there, but the possibilities multiply with every discovery. And then there are the comets. As we have seen, they carry water, organics, amino acids. They may have seed the life here. If so, then they could seed life elsewhere. The Oort Cloud is not a wall but a bridge, scattering the ingredients of life across the galaxy. Each passing star, each exchange of comets, could spread chemistry like pollen in cosmic winds. Life may not be isolated, it may be galactic. But if life is so abundant, why have we not seen it? This is the heart of the Fermi paradox. With billions of stars and billions of years, intelligent civilizations should be common. They should have left signals, artifacts, traces, yet we see nothing, silence. Perhaps the silence is distance. Civilizations may exist, but so far away that their light has not yet reached us. Perhaps it is time. Civilizations may rise and fall quickly, brief flickers in cosmic history, too short to overlap with ours. Or perhaps the silence is deliberate. Perhaps life beyond the horizon chooses not to reveal itself. This possibility is unsettling, for it suggests that the edge of our world is not simply physical, but cultural, that beyond the Oort Cloud may lie civilizations we cannot perceive, either because they are too far or because they choose to remain hidden. Yet silence is not proof of absence. The universe hides well. Just as the Oort Cloud is invisible, so too might life be invisible, subtle, rare, or simply beyond the limits of our senses. We may be like fish in a pond, unaware of the birds flying above, unable to imagine worlds beyond water. Still, the search continues. Radio telescopes scan the skies for signals. Space telescopes analyze exoplanet atmospheres for chemical imbalances. Oxygen, methane, carbon dioxide in unnatural ratios, hints of biological activity. Probes like Voyager carry our messages outward, golden records of who we are, drifting into the dark in the hope that someone someday will find them. And here the parallel with the Oort Cloud sharpens again. For just as comets are messengers from the edge, so too are we sending messengers outward, not of ice, but of identity. Each probe, each signal, is a comet of thought, carrying our existence beyond our horizon. Perhaps one day, long after we are gone, they will fall inward to another civilization, blazing across their skies as proof that we once lived. So what lies beyond the horizon? Perhaps infinity, perhaps nothing, or perhaps something stranger, life scattered like seeds, civilizations hidden in silence, identities overlapping like Oort clouds themselves. If we find life, the meaning of inside will dissolve. We will no longer be the only story. If we do not, then we must live with the paradox that the galaxy may be rich in possibility, yet barren in reality. Either way, the Oort cloud is more than the edge of the solar system. It is the edge of expectation. It is where our imagination projects outward, where we place our deepest questions. Are we alone, or are we part of something greater? And so the search continues. Every comet that falls inward, every exoplanet discovered, every signal scanned is part of the same question. Beyond the horizon, is there life? Or is the silence itself the answer? Beyond the horizon, is there life? Or is the silence itself the answer? The truth is, we may never know. The Oort cloud will remain invisible, the comets will continue to fall, and the galaxy will continue to whisper its secrets just beyond our reach. And yet perhaps the answer was never the point. Perhaps the point is the question itself, the act of standing at the edge and daring to wonder. Because every edge we've crossed in this journey has taught us something about ourselves. At first we thought the Oort cloud was a wall, the final boundary of the sun's gravity, the place where the solar system ends. Then we saw it as a mirror, reflecting back our fragility, forcing us to confront what it means to live inside. Then it became a marketplace, where stars exchange comets, chemistry, perhaps even life itself. Then a curtain, a veil we could part, stepping into the galactic sea. Then a horizon, not only of distance but of imagination, where science and myth meet. And finally, it became a question of life, whether the silence is emptiness or abundance disguised. The Oort cloud, in the end, is not just the edge of the solar system, it is the edge of meaning. It is the place where science and philosophy meet, where astronomy becomes anthropology, where comets become questions. To ask about the Oort cloud is to ask about ourselves. For what does it mean to live inside? It means belonging, but also fragility. It means being shielded, but also being limited. It means identity, but also dependence. And to step beyond, to imagine infinity, to imagine other lives, to imagine other worlds, is to accept that edges are never final. Every wall is a threshold. Every threshold is an invitation. This is why the Oort cloud fascinates us. Not because we will ever see it, we won't. Not because we will ever cross it, we may not. But because it embodies the paradox at the heart of human existence, that we live in boundaries yet yearn for what lies beyond. The comets that blaze across our skies are more than frozen ice. They are reminders that the universe does not end where our eyes fail. They are proof that beyond our world, beyond our sun, there is always more history, more mystery, more belonging. Each comet is a messenger, and each messenger carries the same truth. You are not at the center, you are not the whole, but you are part of something vast and unfinished. And so the silence of the Oort cloud is not emptiness. It is possibility. It is the quiet before discovery. It is the horizon of imagination waiting for us to cross. Perhaps infinity, perhaps nothing, or perhaps something stranger than both. We may never resolve that question, but in the act of asking it, we reveal who we are: explorers, storytellers, children of a star who refuse to accept its limits. The Oort cloud is the edge of the solar system, but it is also the edge of us. And if that is true, then the greatest discovery is not what lies beyond, it is what it means to live inside